yet, but
I need to do one thing. I need to hang up on the phone. So I will talk to you later.
I'll ping you on Slack.
Okay. Okay. So welcome everybody from Instagram. Welcome everyone on YouTube. We're trying something new where we're going to go live on YouTube and Instagram at the same time. Getting all fancy here with our technology. So I just want to first welcome everybody. If you wouldn't mind just in the chat telling me where in the world you're joining us from. And as folks sign on, we'll get started in just a minute. So I'd love to hear where you are joining us from. And as folks do that, I'll just introduce myself for anybody that has not been to our office hours with Dr. Judd before. I'm Dr. Judd Brewer. I'm an addiction psychiatrist and neuroscientist specializing in anxiety and habit change. I'm the director of research and innovation at the Brown Mindfulness Center, also an associate professor in the Department of Behavioral and Social Sciences and Psychiatry at the School of Public Health and the School of Medicine at Brown University. This live office hours with Dr. Judd is set up so that we'll go over a really brief topic from something that's been really live from last week in some of the YouTube videos that I've been putting out there. Then we will open it up to answer your questions. In addition to myself, I want to thank Josh Roman, who's the Chief Product Officer at Mind Sciences. He is running all things technical on the website for today and from this live podcast. So thank you, Josh, for helping out with this. He's going to also moderate the questions that we have for today. And I think we can go ahead and get started. So I thought maybe we could just start I want to welcome you all, and I'm seeing folks joining us from all over the United States, Dallas, Austin, Los Angeles, Cape Cod, Massachusetts, Red Hill, Pennsylvania, Madison, Wisconsin. Also seeing folks from Europe, so joining us from Denmark, seeing folks joining us from Canada, Ontario, and other places across the world. So welcome everybody wherever you are. I hope you are staying safe and sane in these very uncertain times. One of the phrases that I've been hearing a lot. So maybe as a way to help us all ground ourselves in these uncertain times, let's just take a moment to do a brief mindfulness practice together. I certainly find this helpful for myself. And as I've talked about in some of my previous YouTube videos, it's really helpful to just ground ourselves as a way to keep our thinking brains online and thinking. So wherever in the world you are, just take a moment to put away anything that is distracting you, whether it's your email accounts. You can close down your email. Turn off your social media, put your phone farther than arm's distance away, and turn off the alerts. Let's just take a moment to kind of declutter our space and our minds. Often talk about this in terms of unitasking. So your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to simply do one thing right now, which is to be here and be here with me and be here with everybody else that's joining us today. Just notice what that's like to be here now, as Ram Dass is famous for saying and writing his book. So whether you're standing, sitting, walking, lying down, it doesn't matter what posture you're in, just take a moment to check in with yourself. So maybe focus on your breathing. Focus on your hands or your feet. Let's just be here now together. And notice what this is like. Just feeling into your direct experience. Might be feeling physical sensations in your body. It might be hearing sounds in your environment. It might be simply looking around the room and seeing what you see. Just notice what it's like to ground yourself in your direct experience. Ground yourself in this present moment. And notice how grounding yourself can help calm your body, calm your mind. Help you step out of maybe any habit loops that are spinning up. For many of us right now, that's worry about the future. Notice how this can also help bring your thinking brain back online. So thank you for doing that brief exercise with me just now. What I'd like to do for the next couple of minutes is just talk about a little bit of the one of the topics that's really live for me right now, which is bringing in curiosity as what I think of as this bigger, better offer. That's bigger and better than getting caught up in anxiety or fear or worry. So I've put out a couple of videos in the last couple of days about this, and even my YouTube video from this morning, if you haven't had a chance to watch it, really talks about bringing awareness into our experience and using our eyes as a way to hack into this process. So maybe I'll talk about that for a minute in a minute. But I'd like to just introduce this idea of curiosity. I think of it as a superpower. If we get caught up in old habit loops, let's use a worry habit loop as an example. For those of you that aren't familiar with habit loops, they have three elements: a trigger, a behavior, and a result. With worry, anxiety or fear is that trigger. It triggers worry as the mental behavior. And that mental behavior of worry leads to a result where we feel like we're in control. Even if worry isn't actually solving our problems or helping us get information that's going to help us plan for the future, it at least feels like we're doing something. When we don't have that accurate information and we can't actually do anything, our brain says, well, I'm going to go ahead and do something anyway. And so we worry. So here, if we can just map out these worry habit loops, we can step back from them and ask ourselves, oh, what am I getting from this? And we can already move from not knowing how our minds work to knowing quite a bit, and really important bits about how our minds work, which is, oh, here are these worry habit loops, and here's what I'm getting from them. So when we start to see, oh, I'm not getting a lot from worry, that actually taps into the reward-based learning system in our brain, which is going to determine what behaviors we do based on how rewarding they are. If we see that they're not very rewarding, this actually opens up the space for our brains to have what I have described previously as the bigger, better offer. It looks for something better. Now, here's where curiosity is like a superpower. Curiosity can do two things. One, it can help us get really curious when we are asking ourselves, how rewarding is this, when we're getting caught in a worry loop. And we can start to see really clearly with a kind of a non-judgmental attitude. Curiosity isn't taking sides. It's not making judgments. It's simply trying to explore what's happening. So that curiosity helps us see things very objectively. And at the same time, it in itself can feel better than worry. Now, it's important to really understand that there are actually two different types of curiosity out here, because one curiosity doesn't feel that great, and one curiosity type of curiosity actually feels pretty amazing. So let's really be clear about this. So there are two types of curiosity, and I've written a blog post on this on my website, Dr. Judd, and I've also done a video about this in the last week about the two flavors of curiosity. So you can take a look at those for details. But basically, there are two types. There's one called deprivation curiosity and one called interest curiosity. Deprivation curiosity is basically that, oh, I don't know the answer to something, so I need to know. Now, many of our deprivation curiosities may be, peaked or even kind of redlining right now because we want to know a whole lot of things. We want to know how dangerous this virus is. We want to know when we're going to be able to stop being in lockdown. We want to know how this is going to affect the economy. We want to know a bunch of things. And so we can actually tap into our own deprivation curiosity just to see what it feels like right now. Oh, what does it feel like not to know? The way I think about deprivation curiosity is that it's based on a destination. When we get there, we've actually satisfied that deprivation curiosity. So we can think of that as that deprivation curiosity is that itch that starts getting really itchy, which drives us to scratch it, to go get that information, to go look that information up. Once that itch is scratched, we're at our destination, we've got our information, and then we feel better. So we don't, it's that deprivation curiosity ends at that point. So you can think of deprivation curiosity as the destination, got to get somewhere. You can also think about it and feel in your own experience what it feels like. Deprivation curiosity feels kind of itchy, feels kind of restless. It drives us into action. That's exactly what it's designed for. From an evolutionary standpoint, information is like food. It's food for our brain. So the more we don't need information, the more our brain's going to say, hey, you better get up and go find that. And that get up motivation is that itchy, restless scratch that gets us to go up and do something. You might notice that restless quality, that itch that needs to be scratched, shares a lot of qualities with things like anxiety, things like worry, even things like craving. When we don't know how something's going to go, we might feel restless, get up, go into the kitchen and think, oh man, I don't know what I want, but I want something. And then we eat some food, which can actually distract us from that itchy, restless feeling and then perpetuate habit loops around stress eating or worry eating or other types of things. So deprivation, curiosity, itchy, restless, destination, got to get somewhere, similar to stress eating, things like that. On the other hand, there's interest curiosity. Interest curiosity is, instead of having to get somewhere, getting an answer to feel satisfied, I think of this as the joy of discovery, the joy of the journey itself. So with interest, we see something and we're like, oh, that's interesting, and we want to learn more about it. So that journey is actually what drives our interest in knowing more. And so it doesn't matter when that journey ends because there's no destination. We have no destination in mind. We're simply enjoying the ride. We're enjoying the joy of discovery. So here, interest curiosity feels pretty different than deprivation curiosity. Interest curiosity, instead of feeling itchy, restless, sometimes closed down, like that itch that needs to be scratched, interest curiosity feels more open. It actually draws us toward things and doesn't have this driven quality to it. We'll practice this together right now. I love this little exercise, which is simply to pay attention to our hands. So if you pay attention to your hands right now, And just ask the simple question, is my right hand or my left hand warmer right now? You don't even have to move any part of your body, but simply bring your awareness to your hands and simply get curious. Which hand does feel warmer right now? Or do they feel exactly the same temperature? So here, notice how that interest, which hand does feel warmer, naturally draws you into your hands. And it doesn't matter what the answer is. It's simply that joy of discovery. I haven't paid attention to how warm my hands are today. There's this, there's that. Or, wow, that's interesting. They feel exactly the same temperature. Or, wow, that's interesting. My left hand or my right hand feels warmer. So there's a great example of tapping into interest curiosity, simply that joy of discovery. Which hand feels warmer than the other one? So coming back to this reward-based learning piece and worry, what we can do when we're worried, we can actually substitute curiosity for worry, not necessarily deprivation curiosity for worry. So let's explore that and why that's not helpful. So let's say we're worried, or we wake up and we feel anxious, and then we start thinking, why am I anxious? And then we get into this why habit loop, which is based on deprivation curiosity. What's making me anxious? And then we start looking around to see what is causing us to be anxious. This is problematic because often we don't know what causes us to be anxious. And many of my patients in my clinic who have generalized anxiety disorder have no idea why they're anxious. They just feel anxious. The thing is, it doesn't matter why they're anxious. What matters most is that they are anxious, so they can actually work with that anxiety in that moment. So here we can see if we go off onto a side path or a dead end of deprivation curiosity, and we start looking for why. One, we might not find it. Two, even if it is caused by something, we might not be able to fix it. And three, often these things originate in the past. We're out trying to fix something that happened in the past as compared to in the present moment. All of that energy can be wasted in getting stuck in that why habit loop, when in fact we could be focusing on what is happening right now. Here's anxiety. Here's worry. Now we can then take worry, drop into our direct experience and ask, what does worry feel like right now? I feel this, I feel that. It might have some similar qualities to deprivation curiosity. There's some tightness, there's some restlessness, there's this or that. Right in that moment, we can actually bring in interest curiosity. What does worry feel like in my body right now? What's going on in my mind? Not why, but what? And we simply notice, here's a thought. Here's some emotions. Here's some body sensations. Let's do this right now, just as a demonstration exercise for each of us. We can do this experiment. So if you're feeling any type of tightness or stress or worry or anxiety or anything, just notice what it feels like in your body. Don't worry about why it's there, but if you notice that that's a habitual tendency, simply notice that as well. Here's this deprivation curiosity coming in. I want to figure out why this is happening. So I can fix it or whatever. Often we can't fix these things and it doesn't matter. So notice that, localize where that worry, the stress, the anxiety, the whatever is, and simply get curious. Do I feel this more on the right side or the left side of my body? Do I feel it more in the front or the back of my body? And notice what it feels like to simply be curious. Where do I feel this? And notice how curiosity itself, that simple act of, what does this feel like, already feels better than being stuck in an anxiety or a worry habit loop. So I think I'll just leave it there in terms of introducing this topic of how we can introduce interest curiosity as that bigger, better offer. Because hopefully you've seen from your own experience that curiosity actually feels better than worry itself. And that's really all we need to know. Simply bringing our awareness to those things. Oh, here's worry. Here's what it feels like. Oh, I can get curious about this worry in this moment. Oh, here's what this feels like. That brings that bigger, better offer in for our brain and helps our brain see this really clearly. And of course, anything that feels better to our brain is a no-brainer. So I'll stop there. And I'd first like to take any questions around this topic, around curiosity, around these worry habit loops and bringing curiosity in as that bigger, better offer. So Josh is going to, feel free to post any questions that you have about this. Josh will curate those questions and send them my way. And as you let these questions come up, and just post those questions, maybe we can all just drop in to our direct experience right now and get curious. What is my direct experience right now? What am I feeling in my body? We'll just take a few seconds to do that together, and then we'll jump into some questions around this topic of curiosity, and then we will open it more broadly to general questions about anxiety around this pandemic and the like. What is my experience right now? Simple question. Okay. So first question about anxiety, somebody asks, how to develop curiosity? I see what it can do for me, but it's hard during all these other emotions. Yeah, it's a really great question. So in theory, it seems like it's pretty straightforward to tap into curiosity. We don't have to buy it at the grocery store. It's something that we all have this inherent capacity for. But sometimes when we've got a lot of strong emotions arising, it can be challenging to tap into it. So here, I like this very simple, there's a very simple mantra that I will teach to you, which I'll teach it to you as long as you don't ask me how to spell it. Okay. So the curiosity mantra is this: if we're having a strong emotion, it feels really, really strong. First thing we can do is simply ground ourselves in the present moment experience. It's hard to be curious about something if we're being tossed all over the place by our thoughts and by our emotions. So here it can be really helpful to simply take a couple of deep breaths or ground ourselves in our feet as a way, as an anxiety-free zone. Just feel our feet. And then right then, let's say that we're grounding ourselves in our feet, we can simply ask this question, which foot feels warmer than the other, as a way to ground ourselves in our experience. And then, I already gave you a hint of what this mantra is. We can, when we're grounded a bit, we can see, okay, here's the strong emotion coming up. How close can I get to this emotion? And respecting our own limits, we can simply bring out our mantra. What am I feeling right now in my body? And so that mantra is simply, And that is a non-intellectual way to help us ground in our direct experience. What am I feeling right now? That really helps remind us to drop into our direct experience. And for me, at least, experientially gets me out of my head and into my direct experience. So here I would suggest for anybody that's struggling with, pulling out or fostering or awakening their curiosity, ground yourself in your feet, pull out this mantra, and see how much you can simply, your way toward feeling that emotion. It doesn't matter how far you get, how close you get. It's just the act of getting near in the direction or in the territory of these emotions that can already be helpful because it grounds us in our direct experience. And at the same time, when we're aware, we are not caught in these old habit loops, and we're not lost in these emotions. So I hope this is helpful for the person asking how to develop curiosity. The other thing I'll mention is the more we practice this short moments many times throughout the day, the easier it will get for curiosity to become that new habit. So, practice it early and often. So maybe we can just pause, let that settle in. Maybe we can all practice that mantra together wherever we are in the world. What am I feeling right now? As we warm up that engine of curiosity. Okay, next question is, I get distracted by deprivation curiosity. So 1, is there any benefit to deprivation curiosity? And then there's and B, A, is there any benefit to deprivation curiosity? And B, is there a good way to help myself stop and stay more focused, especially while working from home? Any tips for switching to interest curiosity when caught into in the vortex of the why/deprivation curiosity? Great question. So is there any benefit to deprivation curiosity? Yes, absolutely. But just like any good thing, there can be too much of a good thing. And so if we're not aware that we're lost in deprivation curiosity, we can be totally lost. The other thing is, if we don't have the answer to something and we just get stuck in the why, it actually depletes us and keeps us stuck there as compared to being able to move forward or rest in the not knowing the answer or not having the answer to that. That's where interest curiosity comes in. So, benefit to deprivation curiosity, yes, it helps us, drives us to get information. Not, certainly a good thing for survival. So it's not that deprivation curiosity is a bad thing. It's just that if the information is not available, we can get stuck spinning our wheels. So how can we switch to interest curiosity when we're caught in that vortex of deprivation curiosity, as the person asked? So here, the first thing we can do is simply notice, oh, here's deprivation curiosity. And one of the best hints for that, one of the best clues, is to see what it feels like. Do I feel closed down, contracted, restless? Is there an itch that I need to scratch? Those are all good cues or clues that we might be getting stuck in that vortex of why, or deprivation curiosity. If we're not aware of it, we can't do anything to work with it. So that's step 1. Become aware of the deprivation curiosity and what it feels like. Step 2 is to simply get interested about what deprivation curiosity feels like. So we can actually bring interest curiosity in right in that moment. Oh, here's deprivation curiosity. What does deprivation curiosity feel like? So we can actually use interest curiosity as a way to explore deprivation curiosity and at the same time hack our minds because we're already in that interest mode. So the simple thing there would be, when we're stuck in that vortex of deprivation curiosity, to pull out that mantra of and that helps us foster and support interest curiosity right in that moment. And then rinse and repeat. That's I shouldn't say all we need to do, not that it's easy. It is relatively simple and not necessarily easy, but the more we practice it, the easier that simple practice gets. So I want to thank you for that question about benefits of deprivation curiosity and how to foster interest curiosity and how we can actually play the two off of each other. So let's just drop into our direct experience together. Wow. I didn't know I could bring interest curiosity to deprivation curiosity, or whatever it is that helps us ground ourselves in this moment. Bring some curiosity, some interest curiosity in as we let this settle in. Okay, so next question around curiosity. Why does it feel better to assume the worst instead of being okay not knowing and living with uncertainty? Great question. Why does it feel better to assume the worst instead of being okay not knowing and living with uncertainty? So first, I'm not going to assume that it feels better for all of us to assume the worst. But I will acknowledge that for many of us, it might feel better in that moment to assume the worst. So why might that be the case? That might be the thing that we can all explore for ourselves. What does assuming the worst actually get us? Does it feel like we're in control because we have thought of all the worst case scenarios and therefore we can theoretically plan for them? Is it feel like just the act of doing that assuming and doing that mental, the mental projection into the future? Okay, the worst case thing is going to happen. That act of assuming, does that feel like we're doing something simply similar to worry? So that's what I would say for anybody that really feels like, assuming the worst feels better and better than not knowing, is to explore, does this feel better? How does it feel? We can bring some interest, curiosity in there. How good does this actually feel? And what do I get from this? Is it consuming a bunch of my mental energy as I try to plan for the worst? Does it make me feel fear or dread or helplessness or hopelessness by assuming the worst? So there are lots of things that we can explore in those moments to see, how good does this actually feel as I assume the worst? The next thing we can do is explore what not knowing feels like. So as we feel into uncertainty, and there's plenty of that right now to feel into and to explore, we can ask ourselves, what does uncertainty feel like? Does it feel uncomfortable? Does it feel foreign because it's not, I'm outside of my comfort zone. This is something that I'm not certain about. Does it feel dangerous? And can we actually bring curiosity in? This is where, when we're outside of our comfort zone, and I'm going to put out a YouTube video about this in the next couple of days, when there's uncertainty, it moves us outside of our comfort zone. And outside of that comfort zone, we have two places to go. We can either try to quickly get back into our comfort zone as quickly as possible to feel secure and safe, or we can panic and move farther outside of what's called the growth zone into the danger zone or panic zone. So, if there's a bunch of uncertainty, are we feeling like that just feels, uncomfortable? Can we actually take comfort in the discomfort simply by naming it? Oh, here's uncertainty. Oh, what does uncertainty feel like? Oh, is there possibility in uncertainty because the future isn't certain in this moment? And can we learn to live with not knowing? What's it like to simply rest in not knowing? Can we be in this moment not knowing? I'm sure that all of us can relate to something right now that we don't know. So you can even feel into this. Oh, here's something that I don't know. Can I be okay with that? Can we learn to accept not knowing? And what does it feel like to simply accept this present moment as it is? Oh, I don't know. Well, my head didn't explode. I haven't died. oh, maybe I can be with this moment. Can we settle in and accept this moment? And does that help us learn to live with uncertainty? Because we all have uncertainty in our lives. Probably every minute of our lives, there's something that's uncertain. So the more we can learn to be with, the more we can learn to accept, the more we can learn to embrace uncertainty, the more we can see that, wow, maybe this doesn't feel so bad after all. Maybe this actually opens me to new possibilities. And as we learn to lean into that and to become more comfortable with discomfort, maybe we even start to see that uncertainty doesn't actually feel that bad. It's an indicator of possibility. So I know for some that might feel very overwhelmed right now, that can seem like a bridge too far. But I would say it's worth exploring. It's worth being curious about. So I want to thank you for that question. As we explore, what's it feel like to assume the worst? And how does that compare to feeling into and embracing uncertainty? Does that open us up to new possibility? Maybe we can just settle into that all together, let that sink in. What does uncertainty feel like right now? Can I be okay with this? So thank you for that question. And now let's, I'm just looking to see if there are any more questions about this topic. I think we can start to broaden it to more general questions now. So next question is a broader one. How do you break the cycle of anxiety if the sensation in the body feeds the anxiety? For example, tightness in the throat, difficulty breathing, etc. What's the very first thing to do in order to switch to curiosity? Okay, so I guess this is related. So how do we break the cycle of anxiety if the sensation in the body feeds the anxiety? So let's use one of the examples. This person said, for example, tightness in the throat. So if we feel tightness in our throat, that can certainly feel uncomfortable. It can easily feed anxiety and thoughts of dread and worry. Oh no, tightness in my throat, this can't be good. So the first thing we can do in order to switch to curiosity, as I mentioned earlier, is to simply drop into the awareness of our feet. Oh, what do my feet feel like? It kind of brings us away from that raging fire of anxiety if we're feeling tightness in our throat. What do my feet feel like? And then we can simply ask ourselves which foot feels warmer, or which foot is tinglier, or which foot is moister or drier than the other. We can ask any types of questions about our direct physical experience. And asking those questions helps us start to open to and awaken our curiosity. At that point, that curiosity starting in our feet, we can then move that toward these sensations that feed anxiety, like tightness in our throat. And we can see how close we can get and how curious we can be about those sensations. So that's the first thing I would suggest for this question. What's the first thing we can do? The first thing I would say is ground yourself in an anxiety-free zone, such as your feet. Great question. So thank you. So I'll take a moment, practice that, ground ourselves in our feet, even if we just did a moment ago. What do my feet feel like right now? I didn't realize my feet are in an anxiety-free zone, but in fact, when's the last time I felt anxiety in my feet? Maybe never. What's it like to simply be curious? What do my feet feel like? We can wiggle our toes, we can do whatever. Okay, so thank you for that question. Let's move on to the next question. I think this is a broader question. The question's around emotional reaction. So emotional reaction to wearing masks, both personal feeling of it being strange and being judged for wearing or not wearing, and also feeling a bit threatened when I can't see others' faces. Okay, so the first thing I'll mention is from a public health standpoint, and I just saw a paper last week published on this, the wearing masks absolutely is critical for helping to prevent the transmission of this virus. So if we've got hesitation toward wearing a mask, I would say be very, very careful about those hesitations. Think about this in terms of a public safety thing. You know, we're doing this, if not for ourselves, which we are doing it for ourselves, but for everybody else, whether it's to prevent somebody else spreading it to us, where we might unknowingly spread it to somebody else, or maybe we're unknowingly carrying the virus and we want to make sure we don't spread that to anybody else. So please, 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 if you're hesitating, don't hesitate to wear a mask out in public. So I can speak from my own personal experience. My wife and I went shopping for groceries just a couple of days ago. We both donned our masks for the first time in public because we hadn't really gone out in public in a while, in over a week or maybe longer. So a friend made some great masks for us, and she sent them to us, and we wore them in public. And it was a little strange to wear a face mask in public, I have to admit. So let's start with that personal feeling of strange. This was unusual. My wife and I don't usually go to the grocery store wearing a face mask, you know. So just feeling into that uncertainty, and because it was new, was really helpful for me to be able to step out of the, oh no, this is strange, and into the, oh yes, I'm doing this for everybody's benefit. So with personal feelings, this is where we can bring curiosity in. What's it like to be wearing this face mask? Is there uncertainty here? Is there some thought that's coming up like, oh, people might be judging me? And so this gets into the second part of the question, being judged for wearing or not wearing a mask. So hopefully people are judging us in a very positive way when we're wearing a mask, or they might be thinking, oh, good for them. They are protecting all of our health by doing this, and they are demonstrating what we all should be doing. If we don't have a mask, I would encourage anyone to just look on YouTube and Twitter and Instagram and all these places. You can find a gazillion different videos that teach you how to make a mask out of materials that you have. My favorite one is a bandana that somebody folded up and then put two women's hair bands around. Kind of, they slid it on, folded the corners of the bandana together, and then used those hair bands as the elastic for the ears. And voila, in literally 15 seconds, this woman demonstrated making a pretty cool face mask. So we all have materials. I should say, I hope we all have materials, these common materials. I know this can be difficult for people who have unstable housing or may not be, you know, in their own homes right now for whatever reason. But there are, you know, most of us can make a mask. So if somebody's judging us for not wearing a mask, that may be a public health signal that maybe we should be wearing a mask. And so that can be good information to us. So it's important to distinguish the difference between judgment and discernment. And so we can be getting information from people, like maybe somebody, if we're going out in public and we're coughing and we're not wearing a mask, and somebody looks at us, maybe they're afraid, maybe they give us that, what, really? You're not wearing a mask and you're coughing? We can take that information in only if we're open to receiving information. So if we're judging or feeling judged, we tend to close down. Somebody's judging me. Oh no, I'm a bad person, or they're a bad person for judging me. Both of those or either of those actually closes down from being able to learn things. So the idea is judgment isn't actually that helpful for learning, but discernment is. So somebody might be giving us a look that's communicating something to us like, hey, why aren't you wearing a mask? if we can let go of the self-judgment or the judgment that we're perceiving from others and actually receive that information like, oh, they're trying to tell me something, like, hey, wearing a mask might be a good thing for all of our safety. That can help us learn something and say, oh, yeah, it's probably a good idea for me to wear a mask, so that we can move from judgment into discernment where we're learning something and move towards improving the public health of us all. So hopefully that gives anybody that's wondering about this question something to play with. Both the feeling of being strange, we can bring curiosity in, and then that feeling of being judged, whether it's judging ourselves or other people judging us. Can we move beyond judgment and really get at the heart of the information that they're trying to convey to us, so that we can learn, oh, yeah, maybe I should wear a mask. So let's just let that settle in together. Maybe reflect back on the last time you were out in public wearing your mask or not wearing a mask. Did either of those feel strange? And what's it like to simply get curious about what feeling strange feels like right in this moment as we recall those? So thank you for that question. Really good question. All right, next question is it helpful to reframe anxiety over public speaking as excitement? Or is it better to just be present with anxiety? Can you apply mindfulness techniques? Can you apply mindfulness here? So is it helpful to reframe anxiety over public speaking as excitement, or is it better to just be present with anxiety? So here, I think there's a difference between cognitive techniques, which tend to use reframing, and mindfulness techniques, which really focus on what our direct experience is and being with it, and changing our relationship to it. So with cognitive therapy, the shorthand that I learned in residency training was catch it, check it, change it. So can we catch whatever that cognition is? Can we check to see if it's true or accurate? And then can we change it? So reframing is a great example of changing something. Oh, I'm going to reframe anxiety as excitement. So here, one thing I'll point out is the science suggests that the cognitive techniques require our prefrontal cortex, the thinking part of our brain. Unfortunately, that's the weakest part of our brain from an evolutionary perspective, and the first part of our brain that goes offline when we're anxious. So while in theory it might help some people to reframe anxiety over public speaking as anxiety, many of us cannot actually tap into these cognitive, these cognitive control parts of our brains when we're anxious. And so it might not work that well. So in theory, maybe it's helpful. In practice, it might be easier said than done. The other piece here is, mindfulness is really about being genuine and authentic with ourselves. And, if we're feeling anxious, to me, there's shared qualities between anxiety and excitement, but they don't feel the same. That's why one's called anxiety and one's called excitement. So it can be hard for me to kind of be like, okay, I'm going to twist this anxiety and call it excitement. My brain might not buy that. So here, the second part of the question, I think fits more with my experience. The second part is it better just to be present with anxiety? If we can learn to be present with anxiety, we can actually see it for what it is. And one thing that I notice, and I certainly see this in my clinic, is that, as I learn to, and as my patients learn to just see anxiety for what it is, it becomes less scary. It kind of opens up that black box, and we see, oh, anxiety is this restlessness. Oh, it's tightness. Oh, it's heat. Oh, it's burning. Oh, my jaw's clenching. And we can unpack it. It's kind of like right now we've got some severe weather going on in Massachusetts. It's like a thunderstorm. It's like, oh, thunderstorm, big, bad, scary. Well, what is a thunderstorm? It's made up of lightning. It's made up of rain. It's made up of wind. Okay, wind by itself is just wind. Rain by itself is just rain. And so as we unpack a thunderstorm into its component elements, we can see, oh, it's just this, it's just this, it's just this. Now I know what a thunderstorm is. It's not as scary as, oh no, there's something that sounds really bad. In the same way, we can unpack anxiety, get to know it for what it is. Oh, it's this sensation of tightness. Okay, I can be with this sensation. Oh, it's this burning, or it's this sinking, or it's this, or it's this. And we can learn to be present with it because these are sensations that come and go. Here we can bring curiosity on. What does anxiety feel like? As we learn to feel what anxiety feels like, we can learn that it's not something that we have to change, but it's actually something that we can change our relationship to. And as we change our relationship to it, we don't have to try to make it go away or change it or reframe it or anything. We can simply learn to be with it. And it, we can learn, and as we learn to be with it, it becomes less and less scary each time we do that, and the more familiar we become with the feelings themselves. So I would encourage anyone that is working with anxiety to explore that. How much can I be present with anxiety? How much can I learn to foster my own curiosity as a way to help me be present with that? Maybe we can just settle into that with a Just take a moment together before we move on to the next question. Has my head ever exploded when I was anxious? Maybe it felt like it would, but it hasn't yet. Maybe there is something to this mindfulness stuff. Okay, maybe one or two more questions. So one, can you apply mindfulness techniques for day-to-day anxiety to existential anxiety? What a great question. Can you apply mindfulness techniques for day-to-day anxiety to existential anxiety? Now, I wish I could dialogue with this person a little bit to make sure I understood what they were talking about in terms of existential anxiety, because I don't want to just assume that I know. But I'm going to have to make an assumption because this platform doesn't allow us to dialogue. So here we go. So the way I think of existential anxiety, especially from my own experience, is, maybe when I have a thought about, something existential, or I just wake up in the morning and there's just like some existential angst and I don't know where it's coming from, I'm going to kind of put those into the categories of existential anxiety. So hopefully that is at least in the territory of your question and your experience. So the question is, can we apply mindfulness techniques for day-to-day anxiety to this existential anxiety? And the short answer is yes. The slightly longer answer is I think of people with generalized anxiety disorder as, especially the patients that I see in my clinic, there are many of them that have existential anxiety. They wake up in the morning and they're just anxious. They're just anxious all day. And we just finished a clinical study, a randomized controlled trial with our Unwinding Anxiety app, where we actually got a 63% reduction in generalized anxiety disorder measured, or this GAD-7, which is a clinical measure of generalized anxiety. So 63% reduction is pretty solid for folks that basically have existential anxiety day to day. So can certainly talk more about that later, but the one-liner on that is, yes, everything that I've been talking about today, bringing curiosity in, mapping out these habit loops, looking at curiosity at that bigger, better offer, all of these can help us deal with day-to-day existential anxiety, just like any other type of anxiety that we might have. So let's just sit on that one together. Can I really bring mindfulness in to be with anxiety, even if it's existential anxiety? Maybe one final question as we end this hour together. How will we bounce back after this setback? Any tips for the future? So thank you for this question. That is a great deprivation curiosity question. How will we bounce back after this setback? Any tips for the future? Well, I could say a lot of things about this, but I'll say one or two. The first one is I put out a video. It was the Friday of the first week that I started doing this YouTube video series around really making connection like our new way of being. And that brought up this concept of thaw, shift, refreeze, where, we are this leaf stuck in this pond, and the energy of this virus has thawed out this leaf, where we now have an opportunity to shift. And we could either refreeze in the same place where we've been, or we could refreeze somewhere else. So my sincere hope is that we can actually, and this is about the tips for the future, right now, we can be training our minds, we can be training our brains to be resilient, to be curious, to be kind, to be aware. We can train our brains any moment to become these resilient beings, so that we not only bounce back, but we bounce more when there are other difficulties that come later in, late into the future. So my tip would be, practice short moments of mindfulness as many times as you can throughout the day. Tap into your curiosity as your superpower. Tap into the power of kindness and connection, and see how all of these really are those bigger, better offers than being stuck in worry, than being stuck in otherness. The more we can see how connectedness feels so much better, the more we can see how curiosity feels so much better, the more we tap into these bigger, better offers. And they will help us develop that resilience, which is literally that ability to bounce back. So those would be my tips for the future, which are also my tips for right now. Each moment that you can, see if you can drop into your experience. See if you're getting caught up in some mental habit loop. See if you can be curious about that, so you can learn what it is, and also develop curiosity as your new habit. So on that note, I want to thank everyone for joining me here today. This will probably be the last live office hours that I do on a regular basis now, so stay tuned. You can subscribe to the channel if you want to be alerted to the next office hours that we do. We'll also be putting out more resources. I'll be doing a webinar soon for healthcare providers that I'll announce on my mailing list. So if you aren't on my mailing list yet, you can just sign up through drjudd.com as we all move forward together. So thank you all, and may we all develop our superpowers of curiosity. Thanks again. Take care.